From Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, and today I got Brian Thomas with me today, and we're going to be talking about D&D and coffee with Initiative Coffee Company, with their signature brand, Improved Initiative. And how are you doing today, sir?
I'm good. I made the mistake of reloading my page, and now I'm getting you in stereo, but not together. Hold on.
That happens. Rookie mistake. No worries.
And I'm. I don't know what I did. All right.
You might just have to mute the tab. That
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, I'll do that. Look at you knowing stuff about stuff.
yeah. Well, these lessons were all very hard. These lessons were hard won, to be honest with you. Occasionally I will still hit the I will still forget to mute a tab. Well, these lessons were all very hard.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm also not used to working on Macs, so I don't know how to do that either. But
Occasionally I
here
will
we
still.
go. There we go. All right. I think I fixed it. Sorry about that.
No worries, man.
Much beard. Yes, there's a lot of beard here.
Yeah, that
Not a-
happens. That happens on these chats sometimes. We do get exceptional amounts of beard in here on a
Right.
good chat.
Yeah. I'm for it. Yeah.
Someone that left a comment the other day. You should shave.
What?
And I was
Why would I
like,
give up my power like that?
I'm like, I had to metaphorically bite my tongue.
Mm. I haven't been shaven since I was 15, and I'm pretty sure if I shaved, I would look like I was 15 again.
Oh,
And that
there
would
you
not
go.
be okay to me. Um, yeah.
Cardboard Fortress. The only thing that fixes a Mac is a hammer, applesauce.
I was with you until this week, and I found out that Microsoft 10 installed itself on its own 4 times on my computer and corrupted itself in 3 of those instances, and I lost everything last week. So I'm starting to see the dark side again. But
Yeah. You know, I had installed 10 and I friggin' hate 10.
oh, I
I
miss 7 so much.
After
Oh,
I installed it, and then there was a thing I was like, I saw that you could roll it back, and I did, and I just won't use it because I don't like my computer to have all like those apps on it. I don't like the app look.
I just want a startup menu.
Yeah.
Like I didn't buy a tablet. I bought a very expensive desktop. Don't give me a tablet operating system. I don't like it. I don't like it. It's not okay.
Yeah. Just two old guys commiserating. Well,
you
you know,
you young kids.
I know, right? Get off my lawn. Well, even as a YouTuber, right? And I see some of the yeah, the some of these other channels coming up on us and putting out really great content,
Mhm.
and I'm watching what they're doing, and I had this epiphany. I'm like, oh, you know what? They're all way more tech savvy than me. Like they grew up using
Right.
using this stuff where like we didn't have a. I was married when I first got a personal computer. You know, I
Yeah.
had already bought a home and gotten married.
Right. I'm not quite that old. I grew up with technology, but like the social media kills me. Like I just found out like we have like Instagram and Twitter and for the business, but somebody told me like, oh, you need a personal one too, so you can plug the business stuff and develop like a personal brand. And keeping track of like what profile I'm on is the biggest nightmare I've dealt with in years. Like I post from the wrong thing all the time. Like, oh, it's terrible.
Oh man, Alphate is like my first computer was a Commodore. Our first computer was a Gateway. I don't know that that company is still around. They had the cow boxes.
Yeah. I think I got bought out by Dell.
Yeah, probably.
Um, yeah, my when I was a kid, my dad was our first computer was an Apple II GS, which was just a beast of a thing with
Yeah.
the ribbon printers with like the paper that you had to like tear the tabs off of.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it had the
Uh,
spirals.
Gosh, now we're really going into we're gonna lose your audience.
I
What are you
know,
doing?
I know. They're gonna start nodding off. What are these guys talking about? So you have an interesting sideline here, right? Coffee
Mhm.
and D&D.
Well, I appreciate you calling it interesting. That's some of the best free advertising we can get. But
Yeah.
yeah, we ultimately, in my mind, coffee and D&D, gaming in general, are all about the same thing. It's about building community and sitting down with people at the table and having a conversation. And I think they fit really well together. So we just also, I know a little bit about coffee and I like gaming. So if I can use my knowledge to bankroll my hobbies, it's great. I've never had an opportunity where I could use tax write-offs on modules before. So we're going to call it a win, I guess.
Absolutely, man. Like that is one of the nice things. Like we now write off everything for gaming
Mhm.
and going to cons, and even
Mhm.
my non-gamer wife now calls me playing D&D work.
Nice.
So I feel like I've perpetuated one of the greatest scams of all time.
Yeah, I gotta have you talk to my wife about that and see if you can make her drink the Kool-Aid.
So I think the secret is like start paying some bills with it.
Well,
That's when they become believers. Is
I
is
gotta
the thing.
stop. I gotta stop feeding the business money before I can start making it pay bills. But we'll get there.
I mean, that's actually kind of a normal trajectory for
Mhm.
a lot of businesses that are not started with a lot of capital to
I
begin
think
with.
so. Yeah. I mean, I think the average is 5 years. The government says I have 5 years to make a dollar before they decide that I'm not a business. I'm in fact a hobby. So um, I'll get there. Maybe I'll just claim less losses 1 year to make them happy. But um, I
So,
think I think we're doing okay.
how did you get into coffee and tying that together with gaming? I mean, you said a little bit about you believe they're both about community.
Sure. When I was an undergrad, I was like the cool place to hang out was the coffee shop in Charleston, Illinois. It's this little shop called Jackson Avenue Coffee. I was going to Eastern Illinois University at the time, and I needed a job, so I just kind of like went in and started mopping floors. Um, and the owner came to me one day and said, "You don't work here?" And I said, "Well, I don't yet, but eventually you'll feel guilty enough to give me a job because I've mopped this floor so many times." And 2 weeks later, I had a job. So, you just got to put the time in sometimes. But it was a big focal point for the community, and it still is, mostly the local community. Um, I mean, I haven't been down there in a while, but Eastern Illinois is, I think, 10,000 students, and Charleston's about the same size. So there's a healthy rivalry, I think, between the community and the university, like you get in any college town. But I just looked around and saw some really great community building and community opportunities. And my degree was in sociology, so I internalized that really quickly. And then I remembered how much I love gaming, and I saw a very similar community around tabletop gaming in general. So for me, that connection was always there. Like it wasn't an epiphany I had. It was just something that, like, of course, these things go together.
I used to keep a coffee pot at Ted's house to make coffee so I could drink coffee while we game.
Nice.
So Carbon Fortress says, let's cut to the chase. Magic coffee rules in games. Dude, that would be an amazing product for you to make and maybe like make it pay what you want and put it up over on DM's Guild or Drive Through
Or drive
RPG.
through.
Yeah, and
Magic coffee.
yeah,
Hmm.
and then just put ads throughout it for your company.
Yeah, we do a cold brew bar right now. It's the most mobile we can get. We don't do a lot of hot coffee because we don't have a brick and mortar, so it's tough to like find water lines to you know be portable. But we do cold brew, and we do like all of our own syrups we make. So we do like vanilla every month, and then we'll do another like flavor. But we're looking. The next step I think is high end like coffee cocktails. So maybe we'll try to incorporate some more tabletop gaming and some more lore into the cocktail names.
You said you guys are heading out to Origins and you just
Hmm.
came off of Gary Con.
Yep, yep.
How was Gary Con? That's on my list to go to. I just haven't made it yet.
Gary Con was a blast, man. we Gary Con is a cool con because it's big enough, it's small enough that you don't like feel like you're lost, and it's big enough that you can run like homebrew and the tables will fill, right? So we've done some other smaller conventions. Milwaukee hosts a con called Midwinter, which is mostly a LARP convention, but they do a lot of tabletop as well. And we tried to go run up there, and like all the D&D is Adventures League, which we're a fan of, but that's not what we signed up to run. And our tables didn't fill all weekend. But Gary Con is cool because there's like a whole Adventure League area, and then in a whole separate place, there's a whole homebrew area. So our tables filled really well. We met some great people. We reached out and, really helped develop our brand a lot. We got to meet Satine and Rudy, which was an awesome experience for us. It was great.
Yeah, those guys are great, and I was seeing I was seeing the pictures on your site from Gary Con. That was one we'd actually planned on going to this year, but we had ended up scoring a gig the same weekend, so it's like
It's tough.
Gary Con or money.
And then that's the thing is like, at what point is marketing more beneficial long term for the brand than just taking a paycheck for the weekend? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we recently, like, we have a local parade in town called the Pet Parade that was Saturday. It's a pretty big parade, but we signed up to do an event called Star Wars Day out in Joliet, Illinois. And it was a big event too. And it was one of those situations where like I probably could have made more revenue if I was in town long term, but you got to lean into the brand sometime. You got to go, feed the nerds. So
Yeah, absolutely. Did you explain them it was the Pet Parade Day?
you know what? I left that out. So we'll see how it goes. But it was good. It was a good time. I got to see a cosplay of a Lego Boba Fett, so it made my week.
You cannot go wrong with Lego Boba Fett. That is for sure.
It's a giant cosplay, and it was amazing. I'm a big fan.
Zarif Gaming wants to know, how would you interpret caramel macchiato? I'm probably saying that way wrong.
You're pretty close. Who is this? Zach Gaming?
Zarif Gaming, yeah.
Sure. I mean, the problem is, it's not a problem. I might take some hate for this, but I'm one of the few people that will recognize the benefits that Starbucks has had on the industry in America. You'll hear this term third wave coffee occasionally. Well, second wave coffee is Starbucks and only Starbucks, and they brought pretty much all of what we think of as a cafe style experience to the States from Italy, and that was all their brand. Like, you didn't see espresso before Starbucks was around. So while they have the wrong definition of a macchiato, I appreciate what they're doing. But
Gotcha. So I've never been a fan of Starbucks. I've always been more of a so around here we have Wawa's and Dunkin' Donuts, and that's generally my go-to. Now my dad has always been kind of like a connoisseur of coffee, and like he would go to the shop, and where he's buying it where it's like $30 a pound or something like that, $40 a pound. Jamaican Mountain Blue Ridge, I think is
right.
That jumps to mind. And my taste is far less refined.
You guys are in Jersey or New York?
We're in Jersey.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Do you have like a Toby's Estate? Is that a brand that you see around at all?
No.
All right. I thought that was a New York brand.
I was going to do a thing today. I was going to try the coffee on air.
But I didn't get you a sample of the coffee.
I know I do. I do have a bag of the coffee upstairs.
That's awesome.
But I did have a slight miscalculation. I didn't realize there were beans that had to be ground.
That's all right. We I feel for you, but we try to keep freshness as long as possible. So if we ship, we can grind it for you first, but we prefer to ship it in whole bean. Otherwise, the surface area kills it. So
right, and it's not as I imagine
not
it's
as
not
fresh.
as fresh. Yeah, so. Thanks for the super chat. Fantasy Grounds question: has your group tried Fantasy Grounds virtual tabletop with your gaming setup? You guys are actually doing some streaming, but you guys play live, right? You guys are
We do a
virtual.
live play, yeah. So you guys might have heard of the Bill Allen or Bill Allen World, or gosh, maybe even D&D with high school kids. He's a buddy of mine, and so we go into his studio at the high school, and we shoot, and we'll shoot live just because I I appreciate what the websites are doing for gaming, and I appreciate that there's a lot of extra opportunity that way. But for me, like nothing beats sitting at a table and hucking dice with your friends. So it's just something that it's like that old fourth edition advertisement when it came out. If you're gonna pretend to be an elf, you may as well be in the basement with other people. Uh,
Yeah,
so that's kind of where we're at.
I do vaguely remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and having done this for Nerdarchy for several years now, and having experienced both online and offline gaming, they both kind of they bring different things to the table, whether real or virtual. And a matter of fact, we've even considered like moving some of our in-person games to online games, just because it's easier to control the production stuff in some ways.
Yeah. I think within the next, the dirty secret is, I think we're going to launch a Patreon soon, and part of that is going to be kind of being able to play with some of us, and I think that's just going to have to be online, and so we're going to have to look into systems for that and try to figure out what works and what doesn't, and what works for us and what doesn't. That's the biggest issue. Like, we don't have a Twitch right now because Twitch is really good at integrating for people who are running video from their home. But because we have high-end studio equipment, it's a little bit trickier to run Twitch through the switchers and stuff that we're using, just because of a compatibility issue that we haven't yet invested in the equipment to deal with. And I'm sure it's not a terribly expensive investment, but
it all depends on what exactly it is you need.
Right, like who knows? Like you'd have to talk to Bill about all that. He's the whiz with that stuff. But that's kind of where we're at. Is I think we want to start a Twitch and we want to start doing some like online games, but we just have to figure out how to do it. Basically, like I'm an old school guy. I've been hucking dice at tables with my friends for close to 20 years, and to make that transition, I'm not against it. I just need somebody to hold my hand through the process.
So Kenyatta, one of our mods and Nerdarchy friends, says he could set that up to take about 15 minutes.
Sure, if you want to fly out to Chicago, I'm happy to. I'll give you a cup of coffee.
I'm surprised that I'm surprised Bill Allen doesn't have that on lockdown.
He is a particular kind of guy. Bill's a good guy. We're also concerned. One of the big concerns we have is when you look at a Twitch stream that's running D&D, it pretty much all looks the same. You always have like the block of two players, the block of two players, the DM, and like the notes in the bottom corner. And we're also trying to come up with like a way to make an aesthetic that isn't just what everybody else is doing. Bill's the consummate professional, so he wants to go above and beyond at all times, to the point that he wanted us to be the first D&D live play that was in 4K until he realized how long it took for videos to compress in 4K, and then we decided that 2 hours at a time in 4K wasn't worth it. So well, I'm sure we'll figure it out. It's just a case of kind of getting there and when we're ready for it. And
4K would be wasted on Twitch. And
oh, absolutely, 4K would be wasted on me in general. I mean, I'm not a pretty man, but I don't need 4K. 1080p is pushing it, man. In Chicago, we have these commercials for a lawyer called Peter Francis Geraci, and 4K didn't help him, and I don't think it'll help me either. So.
Fair enough. But, it's tough too, and sometimes it's like everyone's doing it a certain way for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's like figuring it out. Although if you do get out to any of the cons where Satine and Rudy are, they do run like streaming
Mm-hmm.
panels and like kind of more like how tos,
Sure.
for people that want to stream,
Mhm.
gameplays and stuff like that. But I
Yeah,
mean,
we do. I mean, we got to see one of their panel. We got to see their panel at GaryCon. I mean, we went with Bill, so um, we were shooting a video for the stuff that they shot from GaryCon with Bill. Um, well, we weren't shooting it. We were standing in the way and trying to be overlooked by people who matter. But uh, we were there, and so we got to
I
got to
know
see.
that role. I've filled
Yeah,
that role. And
yeah.
Satine or Rudy are like, here, can you just go plug this in over there? No, not
Right,
there.
right, right. No, don't start a fire. Okay.
Yeah, I'll just stand over here quietly out of the way. The Mighty Hobbs, do you have theme flavor drinks? Something like Dragon Roast, Kraken Chino,
So
latte
our
on hands.
so our flagship roast is called Improved Initiative, which I think is hilarious. And if you don't think so, you're wrong. Um, but we're working on a blonde roast right now. We're kind of trying to get the packaging together for it, called Fulgurite, which, if you follow our web series, is more relevant than just being an in-game. Like, it's not. It's specific to our setting. So we run our web series. It's I guess I should talk about that. Our web series is called The Bard's Tale. It's on our Initiative Coffee Co.'s YouTube. It's 5 bards, and because Bill Allen is difficult all the time, a cook, um, instead of just 6 bards, he didn't want to do it. So it's 5 bards and a cook. It's in its second season. I think we had 12 episodes in the first season, and maybe going on 14. Goes up every Friday. Friday.
Friday ish.
Friday-ish. And it takes place in our home setting that I've been working on for far too long, probably 15 years now. But the cool thing is, anything that we run that's not Adventures League takes place in that same setting, and it's all canon and all happening at the same time. So the idea is, like, if you sit down at our table at a convention, the character that you build at that table, we run 6-hour sessions, so we have 2 hours to build characters before the 4-hour session starts. And that way, you're building an NPC for the world that can have a direct impact on the web series later on, or other convention games that we run next year.
I can tell you one thing. There's lots of suggestions in the chat for names of coffees.
Oh, jeez.
Carbon Fortress has got Winter Wolf's Cold Brew. Was one of the ones we said. I saw. There's definitely a couple others in there. So do you work more of the coffees into your games just because on staying on brand? And
It's a lot of like tongue-in-cheek winking at the camera. I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of like fourth wall breaking that, like, an opportunity presents itself for coffees, so I'll throw coffee in, and then I'll give the camera a wink. It's a scrappy young web stream, so we're doing everything we can to kind of like get the revenue flowing. We wink for potential sponsors. We don't have any, but if you're out there and interested in sponsoring a strappy young upstart web stream, please let me know. But we're just trying to have a good time.
Zarif Gaming says, "What do you think of a coffee called Revivify?"
I think it's good. I think it's something we can go with. It's a little bit more copywritten than I'd like to think. The trick is to come up with brand names or with roast names that if someone, not that they would, but if Wizards decided they wanted to come at me for copyright, that we could skate narrowly around copyright infringement.
I feel like Revivify is safer than Improved Initiative.
It's open gaming license, sir. Don't you? It's 3rd edition, 3.0. It's I looked it up.
Well, Revivify, I've seen that used in other fantasy novels.
I guess that's just a word, yeah. But you'll notice that the Bard's Tale is BARDS apostrophe. making it grammatically and hopefully legally distinct from the video game from the early 90s and mid 2000s. If they have an issue with that, please let me know via email before the lawyers show up, and then we'll
usually you get a cease and desist.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll. I don't know. We're not successful enough to be on anybody's radar right now, but soon.
Well, I don't know. We got a cease and desist from Fox fairly early. Unfortunately, there's algorithms and computers that do the dirty work for them. They don't even have to pay a person to sit there and find you. So Cardboard Fortress says, tell us what's cool about your setting.
So the setting is, I like to think it's cool because there's very little religion. So we pulled out, the Bard's Tale comes off of a period where the gods were missing for 1,500 years, to the point that the notion of gods and religion is largely missing and often seen as blasphemy when it is brought up. So it's the idea of arcane magic. There's control to it. You know what I mean? Like, you have discipline in arcane magic, and the notion that like all you have to do is like want it real bad to get real powerful magic is unpredictable and dangerous. So the setting that we're currently running Bard's Tale in is like a colonization setting. So it was a continent that was discovered in the last game that we ran, which wasn't streamed, so it is irrelevant to most people, I suppose. But it's kind of a last resort for outcasts from the main empire. So if you have divine inklings, right? Like if you're a tiefling or if you're an Aasimar, you're considered what the empire refers to as immaterial. So it's a legal distinction indicating that you're from somewhere else other than the material plane and should be treated as a second class citizen accordingly. And it's interesting that some of the characters are discovering that their lineage is not necessarily material either. So one of our bards is a Triton, for instance, who trace their descent back to the elemental plane of water. So all of a sudden she's finding out like, oh, this is a descriptor for me as well. So I don't know if that answered your question. That was me rambling for a while, but
no, that's totally cool. So does that mean like, so classes like druid, cleric, paladin are all kind of ostracized?
So druids are a little bit different. Like the legal authority recognizes the importance of druidic magic and just kind of like puts that in its own corner as like nature magic. They've
been acknowledged as Greenpeace.
Right. Well, one of the nature deities was super wise when all this went down 1,500 years ago and started adopting the moniker of nature. So whenever anybody worshipped nature, she got power from it. She was kind of the only one. So it's kind of a workaround. But clerics and paladins are super rare. I don't know that when we played the last campaign, players couldn't play clerics or paladins, or it was a third edition campaign. So like any of the divine casters were kind of off limits. So if somebody wanted to play a healer, they were playing a bard, or a druid, I guess. And then in this game, since everybody's bards anyway, they're not really playing druid, paladins or clerics. But yeah, there's not a lot of religious orders to follow. There's a couple that have like started to sprout up as like little cults. The end of the last campaign was essentially like allowing the deities to have an impact in the material world, but those deities still have to wait to be called. So
how does that affect warlocks?
Yeah, so this is a thing that Wizards and I have a vehement disagreement on whether warlocks are arcane or divine casters, because in my mind, Any casting class that gets its powers from another entity that is more powerful than it is a divine caster. And they keep referring to warlocks as arcane, and I keep telling them they're wrong, but they don't listen to
They
me.
don't listen to you.
They shouldn't listen to me. I don't know what I'm talking about.
They
But
didn't bring you in for this discussion.
look, they didn't consult me,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's their prerogative. Maybe I was commanding too high a price. I don't know. But in my mind, warlocks are divine casters. But I think the nature of warlocks imply a bit of secrecy, so they're probably in the setting more likely to be around than paladins, who are typically like proud of what they are and show up and don't shy away from proclaiming their allegiances and are often imprisoned because they do so. But warlocks being relatively secret, I think probably skate through a little bit more as like sorcerers or like uh, hedge wizards, something. I don't know.
That's kind of like how we've talked about warlocks previous. It's like they're not quite strong enough to be a god and have clerics,
Mhm.
but they are be able to carve off slithers of themselves
Mhm.
to send out into the world with their vassals, which would be like the
Yeah,
warlocks.
warlocks and bards in fifth edition are they're the classes that like no one has ever done their character a disservice by taking a level of warlock. Like they're just a really like good class to kind of like fill out the weaknesses of your character with. Paladins too, I suppose. Um, they're just a good. I don't know. I have a buddy who like will find a way to play a warlock every game he plays. Even in a game that doesn't have warlocks, he will find a way to like summon a demon.
It's it's kind of
Like,
it's funny to like because like so many people love warlocks,
yeah,
but like mechanically like they're like one of the worst classes in the game. They've
they're the
got like
worst to stand alone, I think, and I think Xanthar's Guide helped them out a lot. Um, Xanthar's Guide, that book is oof. Um, I think they helped them out a lot in terms of like giving them like
options.
more options. I think the Hexblade is a pretty powerful track to go relative to other subclasses.
Well, they had to do something where it's just like, okay, what do you do? I'm going to Eldritch Blast. Okay, what are you going to do? I'm going to Eldritch Blast. Like, and like in all their invocations were based on
Mhm.
Eldritch Blast because it's strong.
Mhm.
But and then after that, there was nothing really to go to. There's some
Sure.
interesting choices, but they're not amazing.
Mhm.
Like you can do some things like okay, Devil Sight and focus on darkness, but okay, after you use your two spells today, what do you do? What are you gonna do then?
Yeah, and I think,
It's very niche.
well, I think that that's the thing, right? Is Warlock in fifth edition is a class that's built for a very specific type of player, and some people might call that
Edge
player
Lord.
the power
Um,
gamer. Some people might call that player the min maxer. Um, it's reliable, it does a decent amount of damage relative to other cantrips. It fills out other classes very well. Um, yeah, I don't know.
it's thematic and I like it. It's just like
Yeah.
I've seen, it gets a lot of love.
Hmm.
And I just think I think more than anything, just speaks to a certain type of player.
Hmm.
More than anything. Now,
I'd say you're probably right.
let's see. I think it was Tea Time with Toby had a question, and I had highlighted it and then lost it.
Was it the question about tea?
It was the
If
question
I
about tea.
if I do tea? Yeah, so we're working on some partnerships. We try to stay as local as possible for what we do. So our coffee roaster is in Milwaukee. It's a roaster called Anodyne Coffee. We have two proprietary roasts through them. We get up to see them every month, twice a month, every 2 months, kind of whenever we can for training and stuff. We're talking to a tea vendor right now about expanding into the tea market as well. It's a tea vendor here in the Chicago suburbs called Tea Merchants of Downers Grove, Tea and Spice Merchants of Downers Grove. The branding looks really good next to our branding. Like all of these things, like that I never thought would be relevant in my mind or in my brand. Like even the partnerships you deal with, like you have to find somebody with a logo that looks good next to your logo. Like I never would have thought that that was going to be a thing that I would have to worry about micromanaging, but here we are.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. With starting a business, there's so many things that go into it, and
Yeah.
that you don't think about, and
Right.
generally, a lot of people are not prepared for until they're in the thick of it, going, "Oh, this is a thing."
Like I come from uh I come from a sociology background and a community development background. I don't come from a business background. So like the idea of like, oh, you have to come up with an account. Like I went to pay my tax bill last year and my accountant looked at me and goes, well, how much did you keep for sales tax? And I was like, sales tax? What's sales? Like, and I know what sales tax is, but it never occurred to me like
To
from the
charge
other
it.
side of it that I had to charge sales tax. And it was like, well, you charged it. You just didn't realize it at the time. I was like, oh, great. So it's these little like basic business guy things that every business owner that is relevant should know that apparently I didn't. So it's little. I never thought that I would like be doing my own carpentry for my business, but I don't want to pay somebody else to do it, so I do it myself. I never thought that I'd be dealing with you know partnerships and be on Nerdarchy talking about nonsense, like the nonsense that I put out to the world. So um, I don't know. We're just excited to be where we're at and kind of trying to grow organically, and then also trying really hard to like get some revenue in so I can lose less money next year than this year.
Wait, was that a coffee pun?
Maybe. Was it?
Grow
Oh,
organically.
organically? Oh, maybe. I don't know. Sure. We'll say yes. We'll say that was intentional. I'm clever.
DM Dom wants to know any plans to bring your brand to Philly, maybe pack some plugs. Also, what's your richest, darkest coffee?
In terms of plans, our operating budget is narrower than the bounty budget of Master. So um, we're going to be at Origins, I guess, in 2 weeks now. We're going to try to hit up Gen Con. At Origins, we'll be running between my business partner and I will be running close to close to 70 hours of content. We're running 36 hours a piece. Um, we're running games called Missing Horde and Darby Giants. So if you are headed to Origins, check that out. If you see either myself or my business partner, he'll be letting you know that he's with us. And you give him the secret password immaterial, we'll give you a free quarter-pound sample bag of coffee as long as we have them. So check us out at Origins. But in terms of PAX Unplugged, like those bigger cons, we'd love to go, but the venue agreements are killer. Like if we can sell coffee, we'll go almost anywhere, especially like if it's within like a day. Um, but in terms of like the big events, like typically if we can't sell coffee, we can't make it work financially. Um, at least until we get some revenue coming in from this alleged Patreon that I keep telling myself that we're gonna put up soon. That I have to pull the trigger on, or people are gonna recognize me for the fraud I am.
No, say it ain't so. Man, it takes time, and especially if you're a small shop
Mhm.
doing these things and getting everything together. Bill Allen is in the chat. Coffee time.
Yeah. Xerath Gaming, Underdark roast. I think any roast that's not a dark roast is Underdark roasted. It's either a medium or a blonde roast. So I am for them.
Fraginator. For those who won't drink coffee or tea, have you thought of energy drink bar or other types of alternatives? It's kind of funny you mentioned that.
um, yeah. So one thing that we're trying, well, we do a lot of we do some farmers markets in the Chicago area. We do the Lagrange market because it's 4 blocks from my house, and then we're gonna start doing the Orland Park market. Um, if you're in Chicago, maybe you know what those mean. I'm sure in New Jersey you have no idea. Uh,
Now we have farmers markets.
well, I know farmers markets, but the towns themselves.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah.
a little bit of inside baseball, but I think the next step, we make all of our own syrups in house. So we make our own vanilla syrup every month, and then every month we pick another flavor um, or two. So I think the next step to kind of get the anti coffee people is to start doing. Um, kegging some soda water as well to do like classic Italian sodas and French sodas to try to capture the youth market and the evening market that doesn't necessarily want all the caffeine that late. But energy drinks, I have mixed feelings on. They're strongly not mixed. They're strongly all pretty much negative feelings. So
Yeah. We were talking about it earlier. Like I saw like one of my wife's cousins shared a thing about Monster Energy drink, and it was like some like religious diatribe about like the symbolology and how this is like Satan's drink or whatever.
yeah.
I was doing something, so I didn't actually watch it. I have to go back and watch it for a laugh.
Yeah.
But I'm like, all this mumbo jumbo aside, there's other reasons not to drink energy drinks, like they're horrible for you.
let's not deem it like let's not lean into satanic panic again. Yeah, I don't know. We're just getting over that now.
So I've been trying to convince Brian to do some fun PSAs. I bet Bill Allen could help out with this. He could do some fire and brimstone around some energy drinks, and then be like, "Stay away from the Satan's drink," and then you can have the clouds part and the heavens open up. Coffee.
I dig it. We'll have to talk to Bill about the.
And then you have tea, which is like purgatory.
Well, limbo, whatever.
Sorry, tea time with Toby. I'm not. My wife drinks the tea in my house. I don't. It's a rare occasion that I will drink tea. But Truemate wants to know how much coffee do you have to drink to have pluses to initiative?
If you get our improved initiative, you get a +4 from the first cup. Gets you out of bed. That's all it takes.
Nice. You should you should make up some like inspiration tokens that are like the coffee logo to hand out at the game or at events and stuff.
We gotta talk about you doing my marketing for me, because clearly you're not busy enough. So
I know. I just see a lot of fun things that you could do with the brand.
Yeah,
and
it's tough. I'm so in it that like every once in a while I have to remind myself to like take a step back and like look around for the obvious things and be like, all right, like let's find the marketing opportunities, and let's find where we're going next, and let's find enough money to pay for this coffee, like whatever it is. But it's tough because like I'm so like buried in it a lot of times that it's tricky to kind of see the forest for the trees. But
I get that. I think it was Chris Rolls that did the airships supplement in the DMs Guild, and one of them was a goblin airship, and on the goblin airship they have bugbears, and the problem with bugbears is they kind of are lethargic and lazy. It's hard to get them to do stuff. So this went into a whole conversation for probably way longer than it should have been, but the way they motivate their bugbears is they have an espresso machine on the airship, and they would just feed the bugbears espresso before they needed them to do stuff.
Yeah, that'll do it. Tea time. I think I saw you asking me about my favorite class combinations.
Yeah, favorite class and race. Yes.
Yeah. Honestly, when I play, it's mostly only ADL, so that PHB +1 is killer. But I've got a druid monk that I'm really excited to kind of explore. I like the idea of karate chopping as a tiger. I've got a Tempest cleric, storm sorcerer that I want to mess around with just so I can irritate my DMs. We have my buddy Jake is one of the DMs that works with us most often. The druid's name is Forest Woods Guy. But my buddy, we come up with character concepts specifically to irritate him. And so I had a halfling barbarian that went in the levels of fighter, and when he got 3 levels of fighter, I was attacked, and he said, "Does it hit?" And I said, "No, because I cast shield." And Jake said, "What do you mean you cast shield?" And I said, "I cast shield. I have shield." And he goes, "You have like an item that gives you shield?" And I said, "No, I have innate shield ability. Like I have an innate ability to cast shield." He goes, "How?" I said, "I'm a 3rd level fighter." He goes, "You went Eldritch Knight?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "Why did you go Eldritch Knight?" And I said, "Jake, so we could have this conversation. Like, um, but like I think there's a lot of good class combos out there. I think like I don't get to play that much because we run 2 weekly events right now, and we run 2 tables apiece. So on every Monday we're running kind of an all ages group, and then every Saturday we're running a youth program that's an offshoot of the youth program I run during the school year at one of the high schools. That's kind of it's a 9 month venue, so we had to find an alternate venue, so we run it on Saturdays. So mostly I'm running tables. We do a lot of hard books just because it's a little bit more consistent in the writing. Some of the ADL stuff is great, and some of it is confusing at times. But we are trying really hard to get more kids into the hobby and more people into the hobby, and ultimately, I think the more people that are involved, the better the hobby is going to be in general. So.
So when you say youth program, is that a youth D&D program? Youth general?
So yeah, so the high school that I run it at it's got essentially a high school student union, um, which if you've ever seen the old show Saved by the Bell, I know it's a throwback for a lot of folks, but in Saved by the Bell there was this place that they went after school called the Max. Well, the Max was based off of this student venue at the high school that I run this program at. And so during the school year, every Friday night, I open up and we have about 30 to 40 kids come and play D&D, board games, video games, hang out, do homework, do whatever they want to do just to like chill and unwind from the week. It gives a lot of kids an opportunity to kind of be in a community with other kids with similar interests, and it's all kids that aren't going to go to the football game or go to the basketball game. Like they're not sports kids; they're kids like me who sit in basements and play D&D. And so that program ultimately is what started Initiative Coffee Company in general. Is the first year I was running that, they told me I couldn't run it during the summer, and I didn't want to not run it. So I decided that I would start my own business so I could have a venue to run this program without red tape and 9-month venue agreements and stuff. And one day, that is still the plan, but it's a slower go than I anticipated. But it's part of building a business and building a brand. So.
And how long have you been working with
With that venue?
with the youth program?
So the youth program this was the end of the third year. I've been working at that venue since I was 11. I'm 32 now. Oh gosh, I'm 32 now. So I've been there for 20 years, doing different events and stuff. But I've been running that program in specific for 3 years now.
So cool. So you were a product?
What's that?
You're a product of the venue?
I kind of am, and like it seems it's almost embarrassing to say, but like I grew up in the space. I had birthday parties in the space when I was real little, and I met my first girlfriend in the space, and like there's a lot of like things about that space that are cool and that are I think a beneficial place for kids who aren't typical high school kids to go. It's the high school is 4,500 kids as a student body, and I think that a lot of times, not just at that high school, but in most high schools in general, that kind of student population gets overlooked a lot. So we have probably 20% of the kids that show up are on the spectrum or adjacent to it. The rest are just cool. Like they're all cool kids. Like there's nowhere I would rather be on a Friday night than hanging out with those kids, which is, it's really humbling for me to sit there and really have an opportunity to influence those kids in positive ways. So.
No, it's definitely cool. There's nothing embarrassing at all. You got roots there.
Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with leaning into them. And obviously, as someone who looks as part of our mission statement is to expand and bring more people into the hobby, and be use the hobby as a positive influence in people's lives. We're definitely all about that.
Yeah.
I know Bill and Alan had talked about, you guys had done like a 24-hour kind of like mini convention that was run by the kids and the students.
Yeah, so we ran. It's an event. It was an event called LionCon. It was the first week in February. Bill and I were the founders on it. We had a lot of help from kind of local community people, our business contacts, but really the kids were the ones that were organizing and facilitating it. Right, like they were the ones that were on the ground doing all the running for everybody, loading, unloading. Um, but it was 2 days in February. We ran an Adventures League Epic, which brought in a good amount of people. We had the 501st Legion, which is a Imperial Star Wars cosplay organization. We had the Midwest Garrison out to kind of do some cosplay stuff. It was a cool event. I think we had 200 or 300 people come through, all told, and I think Bill and I were expecting 50, and I think the people who were above us were expecting none. So 300 was a pretty good number for us. But no, he's killing it with he works at the high school more than I do. Like I work there 5 hours a week. He's a full-time employee there, and he's killing it. He's got a series called D&D with high school kids that's blowing up right now, and really giving kids an opportunity to see other kids learn the game in ways that, frankly, I'm jealous of. Like I wish that I had that opportunity when I was his age. I wish I was involved more in the project than I am, but it's a killer project, and he's doing a great job with it, and it's really bringing a lot of attention to the hobby that we all love. So
Well, not only that too, like he's marrying the hobby that we love as well to also like the technical side of things for people that stream and do stuff, because Bill takes these kids around to these places and has them run these events and
yeah.
venues. And
he shot the Maze Arcana stuff at GaryCon, and it was largely like at Gen Con last year, the Maze Arcana stuff was shot all by high school students. At GaryCon, it was shot. I don't remember if they had how many students were there, but there were students involved with that too. But that's he's really, it's cool to see somebody with expertise really lay it out for the hobby. And he's the real deal, man. He's been playing for, gosh, I'd say 50 years, but he'd get mad at me because he's not 50. He's not that old. But
yeah.
sometimes it feels like 50 years.
That's all right. He's not here to defend himself.
I think he is. He's in chat. He was in chat a little while ago.
Earlier, but I'm sure he's got to be. He should be teaching. He should be growing mold on young minds or something right now.
Oh, they graduation was Saturday, so he's got a little bit of time.
Oh, he's got.
Yeah.
Our kids are still in school, so.
Yeah, but no, we like I think 5th edition, and with this like wave of streaming, streaming has done more for this hobby, I think, than any other single like phenomenon in terms of growth. Because there's so like Critical Role alone, you look at the finale from the first campaign, and it was something like 17 million live viewers between 3 different platforms. Like that's huge. Like the idea that a D&D game can garner the attention to 17 million people, like that's phenomenal. That's unbelievable.
I think last night during Jocks, Machina, Mike Morose was running. It was like 12 to 15,000 people were watching live.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. Like I remember, and it wasn't that long ago. Like people talk about the Satanic Panic like it was ages ago, but when I was an undergrad, we were getting picketed because we were playing in a dorm room basement. And like people didn't think that we should be allowed to use public facilities to worship Satan or whatever. Like it was in the middle of the Bible Belt, but like still, that was 2006. Like that wasn't that long ago. And so to see it go from that to, a worldwide phenomena where everybody is invested in the same character globally, it blows my mind. it's unfathomable to me to see where it came from and where it is now.
Yeah, it's come a long way. You're like, I can't think of one thing, and I'm like, probably like starting the hobby. That's it. Like,
Yeah,
you know, and now
like I
Wizards is leaning into it heavily.
yeah, and that's great. That's the smartest thing they're doing. Like I love ADL. Like for what it is, it's really good for getting people into the hobby. It's really good to have a character where you be able to like plug a character in and like just kind of be super portable. But in terms of like numbers it's brought to the hobby, like streaming is where it's at, man. It is unbelievable. Like you look at what is it? Encounter Roleplay running 90 hours of live stream a week, like unbelievable.
Me and Doug were actually talking about this a little bit last night, where someone for a school project put up a poll in our Discord, and we have a Discord. People, if you're interested in hanging out with us over there, you can. And it was like, how did you get into D&D? And like listed like these like listed a bunch of options, and it's like, me and Doug were talking. I was like, those weren't actually any of our options when we started playing. Like it was like there were options like you started playing Adventure League and you're in a game store, or you saw streaming online, or you watched Critical Role. I'm like, no, like
There's so much opportunity. Like there's so many gateways to get in at this point. Like I got into D&D because kids in my Boy Scout troop badgered me enough to get into D&D. Like I was resistant the whole time. And it's funny because like even outside of D&D, like you talk to like LARPers, and it's amazing to me because you'll talk to people who play D&D and they'll be like, why would I want to LARP? I don't want to go and steal. I don't want to go to stores and steal things because it's what my character would do. And you'll talk to LARPers and they'll be like, why would I want to go sit at a table and do math? Like, I don't want to play D&D, So it's like all of this, like, what type of nerddom are you looking at? But there's never been an easier time or an easier way to find a gateway into the hobby. Like, you know what you're getting in. There's no reason you don't know what you're getting into when you sit down at the table anymore.
It is kind of funny, like these stupid little divides, even in the community.
Yeah.
That don't make any sense, because I remember back in the day, like Ted and his friends were LARPers, and we were definitely too cool for school back in those days. Like me and some of the other friends that we started like our gaming group with, we were like headbangers and metalheads, and like, you want to do what in the woods, but and so from that they had a saying, it's like, a good idea, bad roll. So like our counter was the dice no. So.
Yeah, I used to wait tables third shift, and it was where they would do afters for a LARP, and I got into it just because like I met the people, and it was a werewolf LARP, like a One World by Night werewolf game, and they were telling me about the game, and they were telling me like, oh, like you should start playing, and I was like, well, can I just play a regular guy? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? You can play kinfolk? And I was like, no, like a regular guy who just wandered onto the area, like. And that's like it developed a whole notion of like a laundry list of characters that I like. In answer to your question, the characters I love are the characters that are against type. Like those are the only characters that I find interest in playing. So like halfling barbarians and like the moniker that I use for the business, the handyman, comes from an old character I came up with named Ron the Handyman Hutchinson, who's just like a carpenter, like uses hammers and like screwdrivers to hit people.
Oh, that's great. I could just envision him like wandering into the door. Hey, what do you mean? I just killed orcs. I thought there was a door here. It was squeaky. I came to fix it.
Yeah. Just like he's just there to like do repair work and adventure calls. So
yeah, sometimes you just want to put in a new window, an energy efficient window, but there's an owlbear outside, so you just got to clear it.
I'm just here to fix the well. Like I don't want to deal with these fae.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are up on the hour mark.
Oh, geez. That went quick.
It always does. What do you want to leave people with before we head on out? Buy coffee?
Well, buy coffee. You can check us out at initiativecoffeeco.com. Our whole bean is there for for Improved Initiative. We'll have Fulgurite, our blonde roast, up soon. We'll be at Origins. Check us out. We're running 2 events. One of them is called Derby Giants. One of them is called Missing Horde. those will be. We run games a little bit peculiar because the idea is when you sit down at our table, you're building an NPC for our world. So everything happens in canon, everything happens at the same time. So anything that you do at a table that we're running for a con can have a direct impact on the web series we do, on other con games, that kind of stuff. Um, if you see us at Origins, give us that secret password immaterial, and we'll give you a free quarter-pound sample bag of our coffee while supplies last. You can find us on Twitter at Init Coffee Co. because there's a character limit that's stupid. You can find us at Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Initiative Coffee Co. Check out our web series, The Bard's Tale, BARDS apostrophe, the tale of many bards, not the tale of a single bard. I want to make that very clear. Other than that, thanks for having us on. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for coming on. And as always, all the links are in the description. I was laughing at the chat a little bit. They want to sit and plant a saboteur in my house to make the live chats last longer. And a bunch of people on here too. We're up around 50 people hanging out with us today.
That's crazy. That's cool.
Yeah, you know what it is. They thought Ted was going to be on again because he did the last two. Surprise, suckers! I'm back. But with that, until next time, stay nerdy.
Thanks.